Also, I'm the president of Burgard Records, which currently has 2 users. Hopefully, I'll be able to get more in the future. I want to talk about the very basics of Ableton. Now, if you already know everything there is to know about Ableton, congrats. I'm not teaching that today. On Friday, however, I will be diving into the more advanced / intermediate things of how to take your own samples and turn it into something like this. It's a very basic dubstep beat. Anyways, for now, I'm going to teach you the very differences between Ableton's engine and Reason's engine. Now, the differences between Ableton is that when you turn up distortion levels on an Ableton engine, it just gets louder and louder. Typically, what you would hear in terms of anything analog. But Reason, however, tries to mimic analog distortion. They have all the right tools and everything, but when you turn up the distortion, it's a lot different. It gets more quiet. And that's actually what we not want to happen. I really don't know why Reason does this, but it has to be in terms of Reason's engine. Excuse me. Ableton and Reason. Anyways, I'm going to display a drum beat that I have. Let's take a different drum beat that I just created 2 days ago, part for another track, and I just duplicated it across. Now, when I turn up the saturation level on this track that has the drum loop playing, you'll start to hear it'll get louder and louder and louder. However, when I do this in Reason, it'll start to get more and more quiet. Let's take a listen. Now, I won't go too far into the saturation level of this tutorial simply because I don't want to blow your eardrums. Now, let's take a listen to what happens in Reason when I turn up the distortion level on my instrument here. The instruments I create in Reason are very, very, very different. So I think Friday I'll work in Reason a little bit more and Ableton on Wednesdays. So Minecraft and Reason on Fridays, and Ableton on Wednesdays. So Monday, it's Minecraft. Let me write this down. It's good when starting a very basic channel to do what you love. And if people really like what you love, then keep up with it. I mean, if you want to create music, if you want to create songs, and you want to teach how some people create these sounds, then all means, go for it. So Monday, we're going to have Minecraft, or just basic video games. I do have an old Xbox, but unfortunately I don't have a capture card or a computer that would record that. But hopefully in the future I will. And Wednesdays, we're also going to have Minecraft and Ableton. No, Ableton on Wednesdays. And on Friday, Reason and Minecraft. Alright. Now, for this tutorial, I'm going to turn up the distortion on this instrument I made, and I want you to have a listen. Now, as you can tell, with Reason, it starts to get more and more quiet. I have no idea why this is, but it really makes me mad when I'm trying to turn up the saturation level of a different DAW to get out the same results. and a DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation. So, Ableton has a completely different engine than Reason. Thus, you should do things differently when working with Reason and Ableton. When you turn up the distortion on Reason, you start to get more of a white noise background. That's cool and all, but that's not what I'm trying to achieve. I guess the easiest way is to do this with EQ and mastering. I'll go over that much later. But for now, I'm going to stick with Ableton. So let me quit out of Reason. So in Ableton, I want to discuss the very basics. There's a shortcut, and that is by hitting tab, you go from live clip view, which you can play clips and things, and browse for samples and referencing material, as well as plugins and Ableton's live devices, where you can add on effects and instruments, similar to Reason, but not quite as difficult. Anyways, so for an audio track, this only displays audio. The differences between audio and MIDI is that MIDI is played with a keyboard. Let me arm it so you can see the notes. So it doesn't play any audio. Well, theoretically, you shouldn't drop it you shouldn't drop an audio track onto a MIDI because it will turn it into another audio track. Only when you have certain instruments involved, like a sampler, then you can drop an audio track into it and play it. That's the only rules that Ableton has. Now, MIDI stands for Modular Interface, Digital Interface, meaning a controllable surface that has a instrument in it. Modular interface, this can be modulated. This knob here, the detune knob. And the digital interface, so it's not like a piece of hardware equipment. So the modular interface is something you can control with a mouse or a knob or whatever. And the digital interface comes from the instrument itself. That's what MIDI stands for. Audio is just plain and simple. It's what you hear every day, what you hear from the radio, from speakers. It's audio, and you can't play audio unless you have it in MIDI. It's a little complex right now, but sooner it'll start to make more sense. Now, there are buttons on the right-hand side of Ableton. These display what you see on the screen. Like the in and out put displays simply what it says in and out. Now, what is in and out? Well, think of it like this. You have a plug, and you plug it into your computer. Doesn't matter where, as long as it fits. That's an in. Your mic output is an in. It has the male part. Now, a female part is a hole, and that's where you plug it into. Those are in and outs. And in and out is like, well, the human body has two ends. It has the mouth and the butt. This is the easiest way I could possibly explain this because my audio technical engineering skills relate to most likely pens, pencils, everything you see daily. I do not have the right terminology to explain this, but I will do the best I can. So in and outs display what audio drive you have selected, what channel or what things you have currently selected in your computer. Like I have an MPK mini keyboard plugged into this computer. So when I press keys, you can see it's activated. However, if I choose no input, like nothing is plugged in, you will not see anything when I'm touching the keys. Ins and outs are very critical when setting up gear. You want the right ins to go on the right ins, and the right outs to go to your speakers. The ins would be for like microphone input, and the outs would be speakers, what you would hear. Instead of inputting information into the computer, you'd actually for outs, you would be hearing it. But you don't want to do that right now because you will start to get feedback when the ins and outs start picking up the same signal and it starts to repeat and get louder and louder. This is known as feedback or infinite echo. Now that I've discussed ins and outs, I would like to go into S and R, which are sends and return. The sends and return are what returns audio or MIDI back to the other tracks. It's basically just audio. So for example, I'll play this beat and I'll drop a reverb and a delay so that way you can hear what's going on the reverb channel of A. Now channels hold vast amounts of audio instruments. Just like audio and MIDI are just different. You cannot drop a MIDI component on an audio track because it's not a modular interface. Although it does have some aspects of modular interface, it's not a digital instrument. However, on a MIDI track, that is possible. MIDI is a little bit different because you can also drop audio effects on there as well as instruments. MIDI is kind of like the best of both worlds. You can drop MIDI instruments and you can also drop audio instruments. However, it still requires you to do a tool, or in this case, an instrument. So I will drop one. So here we have a MIDI instrument, a MIDI effect, an analog instrument, and an audio sound, an audio modulator. So I will play a chord and mess about with these. As you can see, it rapidly changes. Anyways. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Oh, I'm glad it went away. Anyways, when I play this return track, this A return track, I could drop it on any number one of these. It still has to deal with the knob. The knob controls how much input from this audio track goes into the return track and gets bounced back. So let's have a listen, shall we? Anyways, as you can hear from that example, when I turned up the output of this audio track, you could hear it in the reverb. I can even solo it so that way we don't get a double feedback. Let me do that now. When you solo a return track, you only get what's being put into it. Now, if you don't solo it, you also get the out of the audio or the MIDI, depending on which one you're playing. And you also get the return. So you get both, which is pretty cool. But in terms of this example, we only want the return. Anyways, so that is what the send and return do. You cannot drop, I just want to state that you cannot drop analog instruments into return tracks or MIDI instruments because they are audio only. This is much different when rewired, but that is later advanced. Anyways. The next thing I think we should do are levels. Levels are extremely important when working with audio, or MIDI. Levels return how much sound is being outputted. Like for now, let me go to the session view. See, this is at -12 decibels. Decibels are a level of sound that you would hear. Like the highest decibels you would hear at a concert are 144, which would blow your eardrums. So it's very important that you have your levels correct when recording or whatever, because you don't want one thing overpowering the other. You don't want your drums to overpower the vocalist and vice versa. Now, there's something weird I simply do not understand. When it says 0, it plays at maximum volume. So 0 is actually maximum volume. You can also boost past that just in case. Just in case some things are a lot quieter. This has to deal with more of the mixing background. And I will teach you that later on. So for now, levels are very important. Now this knob here is left and right speaker. What you hear on the left comes from the left, or your left ear. What comes from the right comes from your right ear, or your right speaker, depending on which one you're using. You can also have it to where it's manipulative between the left and the right by modulation, but that's more intermediate. Let me give you a quick example. Now, as you can see from the meter, it displays what audio is going to each side. Now, I wanted to phase in between those two slightly so you would have a better understanding. But that is what levels and panning does. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't display this as right and left, simply because I like to think of Ableton as more like Legos. It's more of building blocks than actually trying to recognize, is this a red block or is this a blue block? It's basically very simple. That's why I like working in Ableton and Reason, because they contribute some of the same ways, except Reason displays it as more of hardware and Live is more of digital. I also want to go over the differences between Live's live clip view and Live's session view. Now, what you typically see in DAWs are session views, and you'd also probably see markers like this in Reason. Markers are a great way in Ableton to rename what you're going to do next. Let's say you're recording, whoops, I didn't know that did that. I do not know everything of Ableton, but I will try and teach it as best as possible, or as best as my ability can maintain it. What you would typically see in other DAWs is more of a view like this. More of a view like this. And you can zoom in and zoom out. Now markers markers are a great way of displaying what's going to come next. Like I can say this as intro, and the next one I will rename it as main, also known as the main chorus. This has to deal with music theory and things like that, although I never quite understood music theory, I just understood structure. So, these are very basic elements of structure when constructing a song. You want your intro, then a breakdown, then a main beat, then another breakdown, double main, and an outro. That's a typical song for like, I don't know, Paul Oakenfold for him to use. Just 1 minute. Anyways, getting back. The differences between Ableton Live's clip view and Ableton Live's session view are that Ableton has clips that you can physically, well, you can't physically touch it, but you can kind of touch it with your mouse. Sorry, my nostrils are flaring. No, don't sneeze. You'll explode the recording. Anyways, the differences in a clip and the differences between a session clip, or what you would see, is that you can dive in both ways. In the session view, you can dive in here, and in the live view, you can also dive. The differences between the live's clip view and the session view is that you can launch clips. So let me drag in, I don't know, I have a drum loop right here, and let me drag in a wobble or a synth loop that I have, and I will display this as an example. So let's say for the clip view I want to go on to the next thing so that way it records in the session view. The differences between Live's clip view and Live session view is the session is more of rearranging how the structure is. As opposed to clip view, this is where you would launch different parts in order to be recorded. So I'm going to arm it or record here and go through Live's clip view and give you a short demonstration. I'm sorry, there's one awful thing I totally forgot to do. I forgot to take off the loop, the looper. That is very critical when messing around. And let me change this BPM so it matches, so that way you don't hear this type of weird effect that it's doing. Anyways, back to the example. This is an awful example, but I will show you later on how to fix this so that way it's in sync with the beat. Haha, in sync. Anyways, I switched over to Live Session View by using the tab, also known as tab. I don't know why I said tab instead of tab. Screw you, dyslexia. Anyways, in the session view, I can rearrange parts and where they will play. In the clip view, I can also do that. But in the clip view, you can launch different parts as they are going to be recorded and played. So those are the differences between Live's clip view and Live session view. Now I've already discussed channels and what they can hold. Let's see, the master channel. The master channel is all the sounds combined out of each track. Now, it's very important to have, I have a compressor right here. It's very important to have a limiter on your master channel, so that way when you play certain things that go higher and higher, the meter or the levels don't go red. When they go red, you're possibly going to blow your speakers, and that is extremely bad. You want your levels to be in the green. Green is good, red is bad. So as long as you have it in green, or as long as you have a limiter on it, it will never peak your levels. So the master is the combination between audio and MIDI. Audio and MIDI audio going into the master channel. Those are the differences. Those are the very basics of Ableton. Our return channels, level gain, left and right. Oh, I should also preference this. There's also a solo channel and an arm channel when you're going to record more. See how these turned into circles and not squares? Squares are for stopping and circles are for going. When you have a circle, you can record audio. Same thing with MIDI. If I arm a MIDI track, and if you want to do multiple arms, you can hold down Control or Command if you're on PC or Mac, and you can collect however many you want. However, if you do not hold Control or Command, you can only select one. Now in MIDI you can record only notes, so I will place some notes here. You can only record notes and not audio. Like I said before, audio only controls audio and MIDI only controls audio. I'm sorry, digital instruments. Modular Interface Digital Instruments. That's what MIDI stands for. So those are the very basics of Ableton Live. Now what you actually do in Ableton Live is create music, or sounds, or sound design, or whatever you choose to make. Thanks for watching. Also, make sure to subscribe and rate. If you subscribe, you will get a new video every Wednesday and a new Minecraft video. It also helps me grow into a better person and a better recording station, so that way you can get the maximum info and the maximum entertainment. Thank you. Have a nice day.